Hello, ladies. Welcome to today's episode of Real Women, Real Talk with me, your host, Sarah Renshaw. And please allow me to introduce to you today's lovely woman, Sarah Weaver. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah and I met because Sarah does therapy healing. We'll let her tell more about that. But we met because she was looking to do a retreat down here in Mérida, Mexico, and she was reaching out to help with stuff on the ground. And so that's where we initially connected. And then Sarah came to Mérida with a couple of her besties, and we got to hang out and spend some time and have lunch. And I got to know a little bit about Sarah and her background and why she's here doing what she's doing. But I wanted to allow her to tell her story and to share with you ladies her retreat and what's the inspiration behind it. And so so I've invited Sarah to do this episode with us. And welcome everyone.
Yeah, welcome. My name is Sarah Weaver. I am the founder of Entourage Functional Medicine. I'm an entrepreneur and a nurse practitioner who's really worked across the continuum of care within like hospital, clinic, and now in my own private practice. And I feel like my unique experience drives my advocacy for my patients. And I tend to work with women that are maybe in the perimenopause or menopausal stages of life. We work a lot around hormones, gut health, and mental health, and all of those things really intersect pretty powerfully. So I have worked in the non-profit sector. I really started off my career in AmeriCorps and have been a birth and postpartum doula in the Seattle area and helped found a nonprofit called the Blue Mountain Project, which was in Jamaica's Blue Mountains, just working to improve health, education, and economy within that rural region. And then once I graduated from nursing school, I started inpatient cardiac as a cardiac nurse. Moved over to a family practice setting, really loved getting to know my patients there, but just seeing, the kinks in the medical system, wanting to provide more of a root cause approach rather than just a band-aid and prescribe and head you out the door, but really give the reason why and address that. When I went back to nurse practitioner school, I knew I wanted to end up in integrative or functional medicine, and that's exactly what I did. So after working in a nonprofit clinic for about 7 years, that I had some great experience, some great training in 2021. After losing my brother, I decided to start a private practice. And so I work with clients virtually. I have predominantly a concierge service where my clients have a direct line to me through a HIPAA compliant app. And we work through a variety of problems. And I think this work for me is very, very rewarding because I actually get to see people get well instead of just manage their disease. So a little bit about me personally is I am a mom. I have a 20 something and I have 13-year-old, a little bit of a distance between the ages, but they're best friends. And I live between Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Tacoma, Washington. Kind of lucky in the fact that my career is remote so that I can spend time in both places that I love.
Oh, I love that. I learned a couple of things I didn't know. So this is why it's important to get to know who you are. I didn't realize that you had the traditional medical background of being a nurse. So
Yes.
that's really cool to hear that you're coming from going through the education and getting your degree, and then you get into it and you realize, wait, it's not, well, holistic, right? You're only treating parts of the situation. And so you were like, let me take this up a notch and figure out how to make it integrative. And I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, go ahead. I think that's super important part to kind of highlight and talk about, because we're taught to trust the doctors and trust the nurses, but I feel the same, that we're not healing. We're putting band-aids on things and giving pharmaceuticals like it's candy, and we're not getting to the root cause. So tell us a little bit more, like how, like, I mean, I know you touched on it, but if you could go a little bit more deep on what really clicked in your head, that was like, okay, wait, these two things aren't matching up. They go together, but how do you get them to work together? Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah, sure. I felt like for me, it was important to be able to reach into both toolboxes. I wanted to be able to, I see the value in bioidentical hormones for women. And the research really backs that. I see the value in being able to, when you have an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I do see the value in having thyroid medication actually makes a big difference in the lives of the people that have those conditions. And I see the value in testing and using the conventional testing. So I didn't want to limit myself in the fact that I wouldn't have as many tools if I didn't go on a traditional route. Um, so I actually have a couple of degrees in nursing. I have a degree as an RN, and then I have a degree as a family practice nurse practitioner. And it was just important to me to be able to treat people across the spectrum and meet people where they're at. So one of the downfalls of like the holistic or functional medicine approach is that not everybody feels like they can support or access that more expensive functional medicine testing. They can't necessarily have hundreds of dollars worth of supplements every month. And so being able to have the tools and understanding how to use those traditional labs in a more functional way, also having the background of an herbalism internship, I've been able to serve a wider audience of people that, might not be able to access like just strictly a functional medicine person,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, of like somebody who wants to be really seen as a whole person, and have that, like all the dots connect. That, and I feel like conventional medicine isn't necessarily really good about doing that. If I'm having a stroke or I got something in my eye, yeah, take me to the hospital. Let's deal with it in a conventional way. But most everything else, there can be a spectrum of how to deal with it.
Well, I really like how you just said the other side of it too, how holistic can be so one-sided too. And where exactly what you're saying, the cost of supplements, the cost of the private providers, it can really add up. And so what choices do you have, but then to then trust the conventional side? And so you're going back and forth. But what I like is you're bridging them. You're providing options and solutions that are not one size fits all. It's per person, what they're going through. And it's not just like the physical illness, it's all the other things that are included, right? If I'm getting it right, but with the holistic side of it, you're also including um, uh, meditation. I mean, you can tell me meditation and physical exercise and I don't know, exercises. What are kind of some of your techniques that you use to bridge that gap? So it's not like we're saying, conventional more holistic, and what techniques do you use, do you specialize in, to share?
I think the number one thing that is probably the most powerful is being able to listen to having the space and the time to listen to somebody's story and using that timeline, you know, asking the right questions and being able to map out their life and help them make connections between what happened to them in their childhood and how they're feeling now.
Mm-hmm.
That might be like honestly the most powerful tool. And the other part of it is, when people leave with an initial consult, they're going to have a comprehensive plan. So I am going to order lab work for you. I am going to give you a diet plan. We're going to discuss ways to move your fitness, your physical fitness forward. We're going to discuss ways to move your mental well-being forward. And while that may feel overwhelming when you get the initial plan, what I've built into my practice is all these safety nets. So I have check-ins that are kind of built in to make sure that you are successful with me personally, but I also have a registered nurse who is a health coach. That's just part of the practice. Everyone gets to access her, all the concierge members get to access her as just part of their membership. So it's not like once you pay that membership fee, you have really within the practice our time and our ear and our care to make sure that you're moving forward in a manner that feels sustainable.
For you as your individual person, not as your sister or your friend or some random person on the street. This is a personalized plan that is specific to what you are going through and your story.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you talk about how important it is to hear the story, each individual story, how they got to where they are. So tell us what made you want to become a nurse? What inspired you as a young person, or when did you become inspired to want to help in that way?
So I think that that's funny. I wasn't planning on sharing this story, but I think the place where I wanted to be a nurse was when I was traveling through downtown Seattle to go to my postpartum doula clients. So this was like the early 2000s. I had a business as a postpartum doula, and I would travel around different parts of the city and take care of these families that had maybe moved into the area because they were in biotech. Microsoft was really growing at that time. There were a lot of immigrants, and they didn't have these built-in family systems. So they would hire postpartum doulas to come in and cook, make sure mom was getting rest, teach dad how to bathe the baby, help them organize, that sort of thing. And I was driving home late one night, and I saw the traffic slow down just like a little bit south of downtown. And which is not unusual. It seemed a little weird to me at 11:30 at night that the traffic was slowing down, but um, as I creeped forward, I realized that there was a man laying in the middle of the freeway, and uh, parked my car, got out to assist him. And bending over him, I could see that he was really in the last parts of his life. He was still
Oof.
breathing, but it wasn't going to go well for him. And I bent over him, and I can't even remember what I said, but I just felt like there was a little prayer that his transition would be peaceful. And I really left that with understanding that sacredness around being present in those first parts of your life and also
Mm,
that transition, the last parts of your life.
wow.
And as a nurse, I can hold that sacred space for people. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was really what inspired me, and then there was this like kind of fascination with what was happening to him biologically as he was passing away. And I know that sounds a little weird or off, but I think a lot of nurses have that, like what was really going on a cellular level in his um um body. And so, I wanted to know who this man was, so I searched the internet to find out, and he was actually a homeless guy that had jumped off the bridge onto
Oh
the
boy.
freeway. And so that made me really start to think about mental health in a little bit different, like in a more personal way. And I think that's one of the threads that has really come through my entire career is understanding, even though I'm working in a cardiac environment, I understand, I came to understand how um, heartbreak could actually cause chest pain. Working in the family practice environment, I could understand how anxiety would cause abdominal pain. Um, and then working now in the environment that I work in, I tend to see people that maybe have been through a conventional route and visited a lot of specialists, and they're in chronic pain or they're in chronic fatigue states that conventional medicine just can't unravel for them.
Because
And
it's more of an emotional or mental issue that's the trigger to the physical problem, right?
yeah, there's definitely a big thread of that, right? And then also just like these things that are unrecognized by conventional medicine, whether that be Lyme's disease, mold, more subtle hormonal things, toxin exposure. Um, so for sure, I think like when you have a chronic disease state person who's doing all the right things and not um, getting to a state of health, one thing that has been effective is to understand that maybe their nervous system is a bit off or has been trained to be in that fight or flight state,
Yep.
and helping them learn techniques where they can take control of that nervous system and remodel it can be super powerful and help move them out of chronic fatigue and chronic pain pretty effectively.
Yeah, I have a good friend who has one of my besties has multiple sclerosis. And I've watched her through this journey. And when she was first diagnosed, they told her, I don't remember the time limit, but it was very short, that they were like, you won't be walking. You'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. And she's young, she's early 50s. So that thought is like, holy shit, what am I going to do with this? And and her story is she started with the conventional medicine, and like, with the multiple sclerosis drugs, they're super expensive. And she's like, well, how the hell am I going to afford all of these? And what is all of this? So she started questioning it, right? And so exactly what you're saying, she then started going more of the natural healing, the holistic way. And to end the story, not in her story because she's doing great. She still has some, um, since you're a nurse, you'll understand it. The electrical shocking in her legs, um, that bothers her, but she's not in a wheelchair. She's
Yeah.
walking. She's up and taking care of herself, and doing great. And managing the symptoms of it with different techniques. Exactly what you're saying. She's still more holistic, but there are times now where she's looking at more of the conventional, going, okay, how do I combine the two and get the best. Uh,
Get the best results. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, Terry Balls did a great job of showing us that things like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and even like things like Alzheimer's can be reversed, improved, and the trajectory can be slowed down rapidly through diet, supplementation, changing mindset. And she's, a doc that ended up with MS and couldn't get the help that she needed and ended up developing her own protocol. And then, eventually years down the road gets the government to really support her research because she proved over and over again that this is actually effective.
Good for her, because that's not an easy feat, right? Like trying to
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, that's it's your story is amazing. Going back to the man that you saw lying, taking his last breaths. I mean, I've never had that experience, and I don't know how I would react. I do something weird, like whenever someone's hurt, like physical pain, if someone gets hurt, they're feeling it. I have some kind of weird natural reaction where I laugh. And that's the
Oh.
terrible, worst thing you could possibly do. But it's some kind of reaction that I can't control. So I don't think that I would do well in your position. I'd be laughing at the poor guy because I couldn't know what
Oh,
else to.
yeah, it's like a way to release tension, right?
Yeah, I guess I've kind of thought about it at different times, when the kids would get hurt and there's blood coming out of their face or their leg is gashed open and I'm laughing and they're like, "Mom, this isn't funny. Are you kidding me right now?" And I'm laughing all the way to the emergency room. It's like, oh dear God, yeah, I would not do good as a nurse or anyone in the medical field. So kudos to you, because that's really being with those people in both of those moments, like you're saying, in the beginning of life, you're obviously with the mother, the dad, this baby that comes out into the world of like, whoa, here I am, right? And then the transitioning side, I guess, both seeing both sides of that and being able to feel those emotions for both sides of that, I think is a really special skill or talent or um, compassion that you have. So thank you so much for sharing your gifts. And I know now around this age, I'm starting to, I haven't started in the premenopause or anything like that yet, but everyone around me is. So I know that it's happening at any moment. Things are going to start, like, okay, yep, I'm coming. I'm hitting that age. But I do notice that we don't have a lot of information about menopause or perimenopause and things that we can do. It's like, okay, here's some hormones, but we're not talking about diet or exercise or wellness, meditations and
Yes. That's why I actually I'm just completing, and it'll probably, by the time this podcast is done, the series will be completed, but I'll have it available for people to watch. But I'm in the process of doing a webinar series called Yoni Connection, and it's really all the information we probably should have been given a long time ago around how to navigate our hormones, our stress hormones, our thyroid, our libido, how to care for our yoni, how to balance the pH, the bacteria, how to keep it nice and strong, how to get the most pleasure. And I just felt really called from, listening to my colleagues even and my girlfriends of how little information as women we were given around how to navigate all of these things. And it's been a lot of fun to engage in my community in that way, but it's also felt really empowering to the people that have been able to listen to it. I try to break those concepts down. Like some of these concepts are pretty deep into biochemistry, but I try to break them down in a way that feels very practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope it's validating, because a lot of times we just think of perimenopause as hot flashes and maybe some vaginal dryness. Um, but it's a lot, actually more than that. And some of the most disturbing symptoms can be that brain fog or forgetfulness, or suddenly we find that we're anxious, out of control anxiousness that
Mm-hmm.
just seems to pop out of nowhere. Um, so just creating more awareness around that. And I think because women don't know and have not been given information, they go to their primary care provider and talk about being anxious, and they're offered antidepressants
Yeah.
versus hormone replacement, or um, so yeah, that's something I definitely feel very passionate about, making sure my population of women that I'm interacting with feel like they can access me in that way.
That's wonderful, because I think from like what we're saying is because we weren't taught any of this. I mean, we learned in, I don't know, middle school somewhere how a baby was made, and we watched a video on a baby, on a birth, and then there's your sex ed, and it's like
Yeah,
there's so much more involved in the female body. But I don't know if it's societal, but a lot of women are embarrassed about it. Like it's shameful. Like we shouldn't look at it. We shouldn't touch it. Which like stay away from there, and like forget about it.
yeah,
But these things are super important.
they are super important, and they're part of our like well-being. So absolutely, I think that there's a lot of shame that was be into, especially like our generation of women. And I know for me, the message was very much about not being a slut and saving it for my husband. But there was no instruction about, okay, once I have been with my husband for 10 years, and how do you keep it spicy? And
Hmm.
how do I figure out my own, like, how to engage with my own body in a way that I understand what I need from the
Hmm.
experience? Um,
Hmm.
I, I think real sex ed would be teaching women how to um, rub their clit and figure out where their G spot is.
Yes, that would be
I think that
fantastic, wouldn't it?
that would save more teen pregnancy than watching a video on how a baby is born.
Exactly, and it's empowering because, and then we're able to protect ourselves more. We're not so I don't know what the word is, but easy to convince or feel, I guess, the shame or something that we need to do something for the man or for the partner or whatever that is. And if we knew how to get our G spot and have that orgasm by ourselves, then we have this empowering feeling of like, no, that's mine, and this is what I need you to do. Instead of, I
Yes.
feel like with our generation and before, we're it's all about pleasing the man, right? Because we
Yes.
don't know what the pleasure is for ourselves, because it was never taught, and societal expectations say it's more about the man and his pleasure. And we love men, but they are a lot more simple creatures than we are. So learning these things at a young age, I think it's super valuable, super important.
And it's
Do
not
you have
just about, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead.
I would say, and it's not just about like the pleasing the man, but also the other part of that is we've been taught that sex is penetration. And actually, there is a huge continuum of what could be thrown under this sex category that has nothing to do with penetration.
Mm,
And So I think what happens then is you like really limit your sexual experience to like racing towards getting to a penetrative experience, but there is things that we can do with energy. There are things that we can do with playing with getting to the edge of pleasure and pulling back. Um, Psychological things, emotional things, and there's really no wholesome conversation around that I've found. Um, and I think women really need that. Not just single women, but married women need to have those conversations as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast, Real Women, Real Talk, because when we hear these things from other women, especially in the way that you're explaining it, you're very educated and speaking in a way that is is not it's a you're a great mix because it's not all it's conventional and biochemical and you're having the nurse side of it, but then you're also talking about getting to your G spot. So that gives us this wide range of not being super medical, but also not being super woo woo. We're like meeting in the middle. And I think that attracts more women to look at themselves, or, maybe their girlfriend has been talking about something that's going on between her and her husband. And it just creates this, sorry, the girlfriend and her husband, not that got a little confusing there, but having the conversation.
Whatever, we don't judge.
No, exactly. Exactly. But talking about it and sharing it in this way and giving women an opportunity to even think about it, right? Because when expect like what you were saying, you've been married for 10 years and you're like, okay, what's going on? Something's not right. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it should be right, but it doesn't feel right. And there's emotion, there's all these things. And so when we talk to our girlfriends, that's whenever we're able to kind of get through some things and to see that we're not alone. And I think that's the real reason behind why I do this podcast, because it's about relatability and knowing that, we're not going through this alone. Someone else is going through it. And so it's not taboo. This is real life. This is honest, um, you know, real talk, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We all deserve orgasms, like really great ones at
Exactly.
all phases of our lives. That's not just for, when you're in your 20s.
I think it's even more important. I've noticed as I'm getting older, it's like what you're saying. I'm starting more to now feel it in a different way. It's emotional, it's physical, it's mental. Like I need an orgasm sometimes whenever it's like, okay, I'm stressed out. I've been for
Yes,
a run, I've been in the gym. Like I just need I just need a 5 minute break. Hold on.
yes, yes.
To restart the day, or to move on to that next task. So I think it's super important to be having these conversations. And I want to kind of go back a little bit. Where are your kids, girls or boys or both?
My son is older, and then my daughter is 13 years old.
Okay. And so the boy's older. He's seen you transition through different ways, but he's also doing his own thing. He's 20 something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So your daughter is still with you and going through, seeing you go through these, and I'm sure witnessing or experiencing some of your education, or do you talk with her about these things? Is kind of my question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important for girls to understand their cycle and how our mood and our strength can change as we're going through our cycle. So, for instance, where women tend to be hornier and a little physically stronger when we're ovulating, which is
Hmm.
right in the middle of our cycle. And then there's this trend kind of like downward on that strength. as we get closer to our period. And really, our period should be a time of rest. So we've talked about it, from the standpoint of just engaging in exercise, but also mood. And we've had conversations about her sexuality. I think this generation that she's in is questioning like those boundaries, especially around gender, a lot more than previous generations. So it's interesting to learn as I go because, I, I, we didn't talk about binary things when I was a kid. And
Yeah,
so,
no. Yeah,
so,
that's an interesting take because my boys are both older, so it's kind of like it's like her generation, right? That it kind of became such popular, trending. I don't understand it because my boys are older, so it's like I would be in the same position as you, going, I'm learning on the go, honey. You're gonna have to share with me what you guys are.
yep,
Super interesting.
absolutely.
Super new. Well, she's lucky to have you as a mom, and so is I'm sure your son, because as your son, starts dating and um, having relationships in whatever form he wants, these things are all important, right? And so,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think I embarrass them because I'm so open about it. I know with him, I like when he hit a certain age, I went ahead and bought him some lube and he's like, oh God. Oh. And it's like, okay, we don't need crusty socks. Like just like shower, bedroom, here's some tissues,
totally completely normal, son, but just do it a way that's easier for me. Like you're saying, I don't want to
yeah,
wash those socks.
save on some laundry.
That's
So,
so funny.
yeah. And then, you know, for girls, I think sometimes it can be um more subtle, but um the just, the gift of knowing how to give yourself pleasure is maybe one of the simplest things you can do to relieve stress, but it also keeps you from being in a spot where you're getting into relationships that are maybe not the best for you, just to get your
Wow.
needs met.
That's huge. That's huge. Exactly. That's super important. Yeah. Again, it's to be, um, to have all the power yourself so that you're not looking outside. You're not looking for something that's missing. You're complete and whole within, and that's down to our sexuality as well. I mean, it's
Yeah,
all connected. That's how we're
100%.
here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's such an important part of life.
Yes, we wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so where we met was talking about doing a retreat down here in Mexico. And
Yeah.
I think maybe sex is part of the retreat, but I don't think it's the theme of the retreat on how to have an
Definitely
orgasm.
not. Yeah.
So,
Yep, that was definitely a tangent for sure. Yeah, so I really wanted to create a retreat that honors the fact that we can alchemize situations in our lives that have been tough and around grief. And it felt like this holiday of the Day of the Dead really is beautiful in a lot of ways and of just honoring the place that deceased people have had in our lives, but also for me, like pulling it back, it's really taking a situation that could have potentially a lot of grief around it and learning how to celebrate, like see the light in it and celebrate. So, the theme is the Phoenix Pass, and it's just rising through remembrance. And so we will arrive on a Wednesday night, and we'll have a lovely dinner. You'll have a ride from the airport. So really everything is taken care of once you arrive to Merida. We have a beautiful house with lots of private spaces and a pool and outdoor courtyard that is safe, and it's located in this really neat part of the city that's close to shopping and art and restaurants. And the first day that we start diving into this, understanding your nervous system and really doing some heart opening breath work so that you are able to share your story. And as we're going through and doing this storytelling, we are able to make our grief relatable, right? And once we have that part of it completed, there'll be some journaling activities, some art activities to wrap that all up. Then we will definitely take the third day and go out and experience the world. So we have a beautiful archaeological site. We're gonna go and have lunch with Mayan family. We have a private swim in a cenote with a sound bowl meditation, and a delicious dinner waiting for people when we get back. So it's been constructed in this very careful way so that you can do kind of the mind spirit work, get out there, integrate it into your body as you're doing this adventure, and then when we come back, we will be connecting with some ancestral wisdom. And I think you can probably tell, because I haven't experienced this healing ritual, I'm really excited about it. So the morning of, we'll do this healing ritual. We'll have a great buffet, like a lunch buffet set out for people. And then there'll be opportunities to go out into the city as a group or as individuals. Merida is super, super safe. It's like the second safest city in all of North America. So it's safer than a lot of US cities, and just really soak up the culture, get into the social activities, see the parades. And as we're doing this, we're actually going to be building an ofrenda. So we start that the first night, put some flowers on. You can bring a picture of a loved one or something that represents that grief that you want to alchemize. And as we're going through the days, we're really going to keep building on that. And then so by the last day, we're going to have this beautiful, beautiful altar. And before we leave, we will have that Sunday morning, we will have a closing circle. So we're bringing in all of those experiences and going home with your personal goals set and an intention set. And then my staff and I will be checking on you a couple weeks afterwards to make sure that sometimes that landing after doing so much work can kind of shake things up a little bit. So you'll have a
Yes,
little
it
bit of
will.
support. Yeah. So you'll have a little support in the weeks after.
That's wonderful. And I can back you up and concur on many of those things. I know the place that you're staying in, which yes, these historic homes down here are phenomenal. Like you can't explain it. I mean, it's something so unique that it's like you're in a Mexican city, but you feel like you're in Europe because of the
Yes.
architecture and and so that is like one thing already. And then all of the activities and wonderful things that you mentioned are uh, they have, this is a sacred spot on the planet, and just being here you feel something, and you know that because you visited a few times and you have these moments of like, wow, that was a beautiful feeling or that beautiful connection. And how you were describing Merida tells me that already. So it's like what I really love is it's not um like a whole heal like focused on health and healing and wellness and you and focus and focus and focus. It's more it's what how we've created it, how you've created it is by you're actually having a holiday. You're having a lovely holiday that you don't have to think about anything because you've included everything into the package, into the itinerary. So just make sure your passport has 6 months on it before it expires. And you get your flight, and then you arrive, and you don't think about anything else once you get here. And I think that is a super valuable point because you're not worrying, where am I going to go? What am I going to eat? How do I tip? What's the money transfer? Where do I go? Where am I? Because you're in a safe spot. You're in, you know, with you and your leaders and your helpers are there to make you feel safe. But at the same time, you're giving enough space because number one, the house is beautiful and there's plenty of room for everyone. But also, like you're saying, if you can go out, you can go out and walk to the, you know, the areas with the shopping, with the art, with the restaurants. And what I really like is you're giving enough time of like, okay, like the flow of it, the introduction, the feeling vulnerable and being able to open up and to connect with your story because you might not even understand the connection, not you, the guest, right? Like I'm feeling this terrible grief for this loved one, but I don't even know the first step of how to express it, to share it, to feel it. And so I think by nurturing that in the beginning, with coming at the same time as uh, Day of the Dead, or here it's called Hanel Pishan. Hanel Pishan is the Mayan form of Day of the Dead, and it's a really beautiful, wonderful time to come because it's full of color and parades and music and celebrating your loved ones passing on. And yeah, I just love the whole theme of it, and I love the way you've laid it out, and I think it's it takes the pressure of having to do something or not having to do something away. You're in a safe place, you're not worrying about things, you're taken care of, and you're also doing some being exposed to some health and wellness activities that like you know, you haven't experienced it. So to be able to share that, it's going to blow your clients' minds. I'm super excited. I can't wait to be here and to watch it because that's when I watch people go through this, you know, coming here and having these experiences, it makes me feel really good. So I'm super happy
That's
to
awesome.
be, yeah, super happy to be working with you.
Yeah, yeah. We're getting to partner up with this. I think it has a potential of creating a lot of healing in this light, vibrant, like it brings the vibrancy in. And I would say, you know, it's funny, grief can be not only just like losing a loved one, but it can be around our career. It can be about a potential of a situation. It can be about, you know, a pet even. And there's so grief is such a huge part of a human experience, and being able to make friends with it and walk with it a little bit, and then seeing what kind of value it actually brings. Um, I think for me, really understanding that became really profound when I've lost two brothers, and the most recent
Oh,
one
wow.
was in
Sorry.
2021. Thank you. And um, you know, sitting at his bedside and watching him kind of waste away really was devastating in so many ways, but it was also very reinvigorating. Like the what the heck am I like? It made me look at my life with brand new eyes and think, what the
Mm,
heck am I doing? You know, is this the job I want? Is this the relationship I want? Is this where I want to be with my life? And I think that goes along with experience that a lot of women have. And I think this actually does like tie into the sexuality stuff because a lot of women feel this kind of what we would call a midlife crisis around the
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause and menopausal age. But I like to think of it as a midlife awakening. And if we think about where we're going to harvest the energy for that awakening, it is, I'm a strong believer in the nervous system, but also that ancient wisdom tells us that that nervous system is based on energy centers, and our one of our strongest energy centers is, and where everything is created is our pelvis and that sacral chakra where we have all that creative energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so it is really I hope that this retreat is not only about processing grief, but like reclaiming and um reinvigorating your life in ways that maybe you never thought were possible.
Wow, I love that. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, it makes perfect sense. We grieve many things. And so to walk with it, like you said, very powerful. That's amazing, Sarah. Well, I am super looking forward to your retreat, and I think it's in the end of November or end of October, beginning of November, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we'll do for anyone who's interested is we'll put all the information in the comment section below the podcast, and we'll share it on all of our social media. So they can reach out directly to you. They'll have all of your contact information and can connect with you directly. Um, but other than that, is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye on this podcast? Because I'm like, I can't wait to get off here and start making notes because we talked about some good stuff.
Yeah, we did talk about some good stuff. I just, I'm always available for doing strategy calls with people. You can reach me at client care at entouragefm.com, and we'll put those links in the notes with the podcast. But I very much take the approach of, if I am not able to help you, if I'm not your person, I'm going to help you find that person that can help you reach whatever goal you need. And hopefully we'll be seeing you in Mérida.
Yay! I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, I'm saying Neela's saying hello now. I have a new baby that is very demanding and takes up all my time, and she needs to sit right next to me now. She's a baby dog, not a baby. I'm too old for that
Aw.
stuff. Um, so yeah, that's amazing. I'm super excited for you to arrive. And if anyone has any questions on my side, they can definitely reach out to either one of us and we'll figure it out. And I really love what you just said about if you're not a right fit, then you'll help them find the next fit because I don't know, you're sharing your gift. It's like what you're open to receiving and you're giving everything that you have. And so it's a way of exchanging things that I find more important. There's a value to it that's, it's not a transaction. It's a way of being open and to receive and to give and to have this energy that you spoke of just flow. And I just really admire you and I appreciate your time and I loved hearing your story and what inspired you and it's been a great conversation. Real women,
Yeah,
real
thank you.
talk.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This has been fun.